state of the respect for the rule of law and civil liberties in particular appears to be in steep decline in East Africa. From Burundi to Rwanda and Tanzania to South Sudan and now Uganda, elections have become periods for intense disabuse of the law, for widespread abuse of civil liberties. Governments in the region have enacted legislation that, instead of promoting civil liberties, restrict the space for their enjoyment. Laws restricting operations of civil society have emerged in Tanzania, in Rwanda, Burundi, and now in Uganda, as well as in Kenya. Laws restricting the free expression on social media or new media have emerged in Uganda, in Kenya, in Tanzania, and Rwanda, in what is called computer misuse. These are laws intended to restrict media space, but in particular target social media use as a space for the enjoyment of rights. The arrests, intimidation, imprisonment of civil rights activists have become common practice. The closure of bank accounts for NGOs. In Uganda, in particular, in the last election, social media and the entire internet was shut down for weeks. Civil society organizations that were working on election monitoring were arrested, imprisoned, and some are still facing charges. I was myself a victim of arrest on allegations of money laundering. So the use of anti-terrorism law, money laundering laws to restrict civic space have become commonplace in Uganda. It is for this reason that the playbook that is being developed is exceedingly useful. First, to highlight the importance, the central importance of civil liberties in ensuring a peaceful society. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, to highlight the connection, the nexus between civil liberties enjoyment and economic development. Societies that respect the rights of its citizens, that allows for free expression, permit people to hold leaders to account, and engender economic development. So the playbook is thus an important initiative that will bring the discussion center and front about the importance of respect for the rule of law and civil liberties in general. In Uganda now, we are dealing with the aftermath of an election that was marred by widespread violence, arrests of opposition leaders in the guise of enforcing COVID guidelines. Now we are dealing with questions of forced disappearances of hundreds, if not thousands, of young people who are picked up in the dead of the night by unknown individuals wielding guns, and their whereabouts are unknown. And so we are dealing with an aftermath of an election. The main opposition candidate after the election was detained in his house for nearly 2 weeks, prevented from preparing and filing an election petition that would challenge the election of President Museveni as the head of government. When he was finally released, his party offices in the outskirts of Kampala was occupied by the army. Amidst all of these odds, the Honorable Bobby Wine, or Robert Chagulanyi, filed a petition nonetheless to challenge the election of President Museveni in the last general election. When he filed this petition, he believed very strongly that the courts will provide him with justice and will re-examine the election to ensure the respect for electoral laws, to make pronouncements about the respect for human rights in the electoral process. However, at every turn, when he sought to amend the petition to bring in new evidence, because many of his supporters who were supposed to swear affidavits in support of his case were in jail. The court turned him away. When he made an application for judges on the court who are known to be former lawyers of President Museveni to recuse themselves, the court turned him away. And today, he has filed an application to withdraw his petition entirely from that court. The court will next week hear his application to withdraw the petition from court. This withdrawal, while understandably in the circumstances, makes us miss an opportunity for deeper introspection of what transpired in the past election. The country will miss an opportunity, but we hope that there will be another chance for us to be able to examine, perhaps in a different forum, what has happened in the last election. Elections in which observers were blocked from coming into the country, journalists were constantly being beaten from covering opposition politicians, elections in which civil society activists had their accounts frozen and their staff members, in some cases, arrested for simply trying to monitor and document the election. So the situation in Uganda is tense. The periods before election was marked by increased deployment of military equipment on the streets. The streets were being patrolled by soldiers everywhere. Helicopter gunships hovered over our heads as we went to the polls. Little wonder the polls are being contested and being seen as falling far short of meeting the standards for free and fair election. So our hope is that we can return to normalcy and have a meaningful discourse about the quality of our elections, because elections in themselves become meaningless if the rules of the game are altered to favor the incumbent. They become a ritual, a mere ritual in which the incumbent returns to power. Lastly, there has been increasing tension between development partners or European countries with the current establishment in Uganda. The regime in Kampala accuses the European countries and the European Union for interfering into the internal affairs of this country, simply because they've asked tough questions about the respect for civil liberties. They've asked a question about adherence to the rule of law. They've asked questions about youth and young people who are disappearing in the deep of the night and nobody knows where they are. And they've set their views very clearly, but these views are being manipulated and turned as though it is an interference in the affairs of this country. I think the time is now for the European Union to live by European values in its partnership with the government of Uganda. Thankfully, the European Parliament passed the Global Magnitsky Act. Individuals who are involved in grave human rights violations must be held to account under this new law. It is only then that development partners will hold the Ugandan government to account and hold individuals in the state to account. I thank you very much, and thank you for having me.